We're going to hop more into the Patriots season here. What a crazy offseason in training camp. Happy to have Doug Kyed with us, the Patriots insider for NESN.com. And could you give us your assessment of what these last 5-6 weeks have been like for you?
It's been interesting. It's certainly been a little bit different. Haven't been able to go to every Patriots practice. I sort of even lost track of time because there's no preseason games to base my summer on. So it sort of feels like even though it was a long summer, the season crept up on us a little bit here.
I completely agree with you, and I've never felt like the NFL resembled college football at all until this year, because the fact that we have not seen this team, even in its uniform, we don't literally know what these guys are going to look like when they take the field, let alone what they're going to look like when they're playing. It's just going to be full of surprises. What do you anticipate we'll see in general week one, not only in Foxborough, but around the league?
I think, at least for the Patriots, week one might be, I would usually say, an extension of preseason, but there was no preseason this year. So I think there will be a lot of mixing and matching pieces even into the first few weeks of the season, just because the Patriots don't even know what they have in this team yet. They haven't seen any of their rookies or, some of the second-year players who didn't play last year in an actual NFL game on an NFL field in uniform. So I think there's going to be a lot of uncertainty. Coaching is going to be very big this season, which is a great sign for the Patriots, but we might not really even know who some of the Patriots starters are until week 2, 3, or 4 into the season.
And the situation with Cam Newton is so unique because none of us have had the chance to even look at him in the eye, say hello, introduce ourselves, and just get a feel for what he's kind of like as a guy. We're drawing all of our conclusions based on what we've witnessed in Carolina over the last decade, what we know from Auburn in the 3 years before that, and then what we've seen through Zoom sessions since he's been here. So what sort of conclusion do you draw about what we've learned about Cam Newton thus far?
It's kind of unfortunate that we won't get really a regular season with Cam Newton, and that's why I'm hoping that he extends that contract beyond the 1 year. But that's because I really like Cam Newton's personality. It's been great to have these Zoom sessions with him. I wish that we could be talking to him in person. And I don't know what to expect from him as far as on the field, simply because we saw, 2 weeks of training camp practices. The first week, it certainly seemed like he was still trying to get his feet wet. Looked like he got a little bit more comfortable after that. But I mean, even he made a great point in the last Zoom session that we had with him, and that's that no one knows what this Patriots offense is going to look like. And that's why everyone has to tune in. We are probably going to see a lot more running from Cam Newton than we were ever used to seeing from Tom Brady. Might see a heavy rushing attack just because the Patriots wide receiver core is a little bit weakened this season. But ultimately, we'll find out in week one, and we'll find out beyond that.
I don't want to prioritize the kicker this much, but just because it's in the news, I want to talk about the kicking situation. I think it's another brilliant move by Bill Belichick to buy himself some time to sort of fine-tune this roster. He says, all right, I'll park these guys on the practice squad for the week. I can bring them up towards the end of the week. It gives me some flexibility to maybe move some pieces. Am I drawing the right conclusion there that that's his mindset there, thinking that nobody's going to touch or nobody was going to touch Folk or the rookie?
Yeah, absolutely. And they did take a little bit of a risk by exposing Justin Rohrwasser to waivers, but only 17 total players were claimed off waivers. And I think that Bill Belichick had an idea that without preseason games, teams weren't going to take a risk of cutting someone else to bring some complete unknown onto their roster. So, yeah, that's exactly what the Patriots are doing. They're buying themselves some time. It's probably going to be Nick Folk in week one. But with the way that rosters can be, kind of tweaked this season with practice squad players being able to come up a little bit easier, more practice squad spots, shortened injured reserve time, we could definitely see a situation where there are times when both of these guys are on a game day roster, or we sort of see them shifted around a little bit because Nick Folk was available for so long. The Patriots knew that no one was going to rush out to sign him once he became available, and that's why they were able to put him on their practice squad before elevating him to that 53-man roster. So, yeah, the pandemic has given the Patriots a lot of wiggle room with what they can do with their roster, the injured reserve, the practice squad, and it's a perfect situation now with what they're doing with their kickers to buy themselves this time.
I'll give you my answer first before I ask the question to you for your opinion. I think the receiving core gives me the most concern. What position group gives you the most concern?
I think wide receiver is the second most concern, but tight end is actually even above that. they've got Ryan Izzo, who's the veteran option, and then 2 rookies in Devin Asiasi and Dalton Keene. Asiasi looked good, but then he was limited in practice with an injury. So unless he's really accelerated in the last couple of weeks, we might see Ryan Izzo as the starter, and Patriots are then right back to where they started last season without having even Matt Lacoste or Ben Watson on their roster. But wide receiver certainly gives me a lot of pause as well. They've got Julian Edelman at least at the top there. Beyond that, it's a lot of uncertainty. N'Keal Harry definitely has to step up. Jacoby Myers, Gunnar Olszewski, Damiere Byrd. But at least there's a little bit more experience in that group. At tight end, when Ryan Izzo is your veteran option, you're not in a great place.
Well, the fact you went there opens the door to talk about the linebacking core, because I thought you might go there instead. Do you have some confidence in the guys that are going to have to step up this year? I mean, Juwan Bentley being named a captain speaks a lot to what his teammates think of him. He's going to need to step up. We know Chase Winovich is going to need to step up. Beyond that, who are the guys that are going to make a name for themselves here?
I think the week 1 starters, it's going to be Juwan Bentley there in the middle. I think rookie Josh Uche might be the other starter there. And then on the edges, I think it's going to be Shalik Calhoun and John Simon. Maybe Chase Winovich or Brandon Copeland finds themselves in there. But at least they do have Bentley and Simon, who have a lot of experience, or not a lot of experience for Bentley, but I know that the Patriots have high hopes for him. He's been compared to Gerard Mayo in the past, which is certainly a good place to be. But then they've also got those players with upside like Josh Uche, who was a 2nd-round pick, Anthony Jennings, who was a 3rd-round pick, Chase Winovich, who was a 3rd-round pick last season. That's the only reason why I would put linebacker. I have a little bit more confidence in that group, simply because there's more experience, and maybe there's a little bit more upside in that group as well.
I'm going to leave you with this general thought about what we're going to see across the league next week. You know, typically in the preseason, there are points of emphasis, and referees are calling specific penalties because that's what the league office has instructed them to do. In my mind, in my gut, I almost hope and think that the league office will say, listen, you kind of have to let them play a little bit, because the worst thing that could happen to us this first week is for there to be a flag fest across the league. I mean, there could be nothing worse than turning off the fan base by turning all these games into 3.5-hour games with 25 penalties. What do you think is going to happen?
No, I completely agree with you, because these games are definitely already going to be sloppy. With no preseason games, with a lot of rookies out there playing for the first time, second-year players who didn't get a full summer, it's going to be sloppy. So if referees are out there throwing flags on every penalty, every holding, every pass interference, then social media is going to be filled with a bunch of fans saying these games are unwatchable, and then
right.
Then the complaints start about no fans and the crowd noise and everything like that. So that's the last thing that the NFL wants to do. And obviously you can't have guys out there committing egregious fouls, but I think the refs absolutely should hold those flags a little bit over the for a few weeks of the season, simply because of that sloppiness that I'm expecting from the Patriots and really every team around the league.
Well, some sense of normalcy that we have a game week coming. We're looking forward to reading your stuff on NESN.com and, of course, watching on NESN as well. Thank you very much, Doug, and we'll see you throughout the week. Or maybe we won't. Maybe I'll just see you virtually. But thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks.